How have Real Madrid done this again?
I have no idea. The truth is that they were dead. And I mean, when I say dead, they were dead. 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 Maybe not buried. The only people that believe that Real Madrid still had an opportunity after the 90th minute was the Real Madrid players. Maybe, because there was no reason to believe from what we had seen in the game that there was a comeback from Real Madrid, that they were going to be able to recreate what they did against PSG and Chelsea. Manchester City were as comfortable as you could possibly be in a semifinal, second leg, Santiago Bernabeu against Real Madrid. There was no momentum from Real Madrid like there was in those other games. There was nothing to hang on to. And then Rodrygo scored. And what amazes me is not only the response of Real Madrid, but how quickly it falls apart for a team like Manchester City. And we criticize PSG and we criticize Chelsea. And we have to criticize Manchester City as well, how quickly it fell apart. But before we get to Manchester City, focusing on Real Madrid, self-belief is an overwhelmingly powerful thing. And this team has it in bunches. And the history of recent success of this club and this group of players in moments like this is the only thing that you can hang on to. And man, they do it better than anybody else in the world. This team, this group of players, this whole club in Champions League is something else. It's something special, something that cannot be touched. They are something special to watch in moments like this.
So many factors to break down. What do you think the turning point was in the game, Stevie?
I think there's no question that if Mendy doesn't clear that ball off the line, then they're buried, as Ali was talking about. Because that still gave them the chance. I mean, Courtois made another save after that as well.
They're both Grealish.
Yeah, both from Grealish. So they've been hanging on by a thread since the referee blew the whistle in the first leg. Let's be honest. They got completely outplayed in the first leg, somehow only come away one behind. They did nothing in the first 90 minutes of this game to suggest, they didn't even look as though they were behind the way they played. The fact that they didn't get a shot on target before 90 minutes tells you all you need to know. They didn't look as though they were in any hurry to score. I mean, it was just incredible, which is why there was people leaving the Bernabeu in the 90th minute, because they thought it was done as well. And then all of a sudden, Rodrygo, I mean, just a fantastic run, just takes the gamble, and all of a sudden, that belief just appears and sucks the life out of Manchester City.
Gab, it's a strange thing to say, but you almost wonder if City scoring was the most dangerous part of it, because then suddenly Real Madrid kicked into that remontada mode.
You would think so, except a lot of time passed between City scoring and Rodrygo equalizing in the 89th minute. There's a famous Juanito quote about how 90 minutes is an eternity at the Bernabeu. Sure, but there was no sense of urgency. And you could look at it both ways. You can say, well, they were being patient. Yeah, maybe patience, maybe lack of urgency. Then is the flip side of patience, isn't it? So it was remarkable. Certainly, for me, obviously Mendy is the turning point, but then you could also point to that, without that incredible save by Courtois off of Grealish, we're having a different conversation now. So just hats off. I don't know how to do it. It's voodoo. It's supernatural, and it's happened so many times that you really have to wonder.
So why did anyone count them out, LA? Why did anyone count them out when it was just a goal advantage for City, and we knew it was back at the Santiago Bernabeu for the second leg?
Because that 4-3 result at Manchester City was the best possible result that Real Madrid could have hoped for on the night. They were largely outplayed. Manchester City created quality chances, not half chances, quality chances consistently in that game. So logic would tell you that if indeed Real Madrid was going to open up and they had to go and win the game against Manchester City at home, that even more opportunities would be available to Manchester City and that they would be able to control the game. And while Manchester City were not all that expensive, they still created enough opportunities, and most of all, they were in full control of the pace of the game. So the reason you overlook Real Madrid, at your own peril, by the way, and this is something that we have said time and time again, overlook Real Madrid at your own peril, you tend to go down that direction because Manchester City were far superior, significantly superior to Real Madrid, more so than the one goal would suggest. And then 90 minutes happened. And over 90 minutes, you still maintain, you know what? Yeah, Manchester City is a better team than Real Madrid. But then things just turn so quickly, and it almost feels like this group of players, like Santiago Bernabeu, they are touched by forces beyond our understanding because there is nothing logical about how the last few minutes of that game transpire, and there is nothing logical from our experiences to suggest, yeah, Manchester City somehow are going to collapse, and Real Madrid somehow are going to turn this around. We had no evidence of it over this 90 minutes. We had evidence against Chelsea and evidence against PSG. But the difference was significant between these two clubs, and we thought that it would be enough for Manchester City, and it wasn't.
Gab?
No, I completely agree that the goal and superiority was there. And, you know, ultimately, I don't think it's any secret that Real Madrid's game plan was, we're a goal down, let's keep it tight, let's wait for them to make a mistake, and then if it's still 0-0 in the last 15 minutes, we throw the kitchen sink and hope for the best. And, you know, in the end, that's the nature of the sport. It's low scoring. It often doesn't make sense. It doesn't mean that you don't deserve it if you can go and pull it around while being outplayed. It's just what makes the sport different from basketball. It's a low scoring game, and you get these situations. If Ederson reacts a little bit more quickly, if he gambles a little bit on Benzema's ball, we don't have this conversation. I'm not saying it's Ederson's fault, but there's so many little tiny things. You put the Mendy clearance, the Courtois save, all these things put together, and you get what we had here tonight.
Carlo Ancelotti said after the game how history almost favours them in their own heads.
Right.
How can that happen? Because this is Rodrygo scoring 2 goals. He's 21 years old. Really, he has nothing to do with the history of Real Madrid, and yet they all have that belief instilled within them.
Well, the key is the first goal from Rodrygo, because what that does is puts pressure on the opposition. And regardless of whether you have great football playing centre-backs, if you have, and I'm talking particularly about the two City centre-backs, because in my opinion, if you really look back at all the goals, both Laporte and Diaz have caused at least 4 of them. You know, Gab's talking about Ederson, maybe if he'd come and come out and grab that cross. Well, Diaz should have been attacking the ball. Diaz should have been attacking the cross. Listen, Real Madrid's equaliser is a ball thrown in to the penalty box that a Sunday League side would do. It's not fantastic 1-2 play and dribbling, you know, Rabonas. It's nothing like out of the ordinary. It's a ball thrown in, and you've got 2 big lug centre backs, 6 foot odd, who neither of them get anywhere close to the ball, and Rodrygo scores.
But is that
and
enough
then
to
Diaz, hold on, Diaz, horrible bit of defending, gives the penalty away. So, you know, if I'm City, I can look at the chances missed, and I look at the mistakes defensively that completely change. And it's basically, if you throw a bone to a team like Real Madrid, particularly in the Bernabeu, with the ability they have, then they're going to take it every day of the week. And that's what they've done. They've taken advantage of every single little bone and sniff that they were given. Not just in this game, but in the Chelsea one and the PSG one. They've taken advantage of every single one. How long can that last?
But it's obviously a huge help. But if you're a young player there and somebody says, you know the history, you know that it happened, you know they're famous for these comebacks, is that all it takes to know, okay, I'm part of this now?
No. You're part of it, but you need to prove that you're indeed part of it, that you're going to live through that history, and that you're going to prove your place in that history. And that's exactly what a guy like Rodrygo has done. That comes on the field, and it's not just this game. We go back to the Chelsea game. That game was also on the balance for Real Madrid, and it felt like they were dead back then, and it felt like one of the key plays was a big save from Courtois in that game against Chelsea, and then Rodrygo scores a big goal. And then Rodrygo scores a big goal today again. And then Rodrygo scores another big goal today. And you talk about details in a game and how things change, and it's just a matter of inches here and there and everywhere. There's a deflection in that cross for the second goal by Rodrygo today, by Marco Asensio, who flicks it on to Rodrygo, who's already jumped, and somehow he makes an adjustment and has the header. You would think that Rodrygo has been scoring goals like that naturally his whole life. Now, whether we can point to history and say, well, it must have been history that elevated Rodrygo for this header, sure, you can go down that path if you so desire. The truth is that self-belief, and I'll go back to that. Walking the hallways of Real Madrid and the training facility and Santiago Bernabeu, you see all the trophies. You see the history of the club. And you know full well that magical nights at Santiago Bernabeu and Champions League is something special because there's an expectation. Now, we're just going to go back to this season. Let's not go back to all the other magical nights that they've had at Santiago Bernabeu. Just this season alone. If you had any doubts of what being a Real Madrid player in Champions League means, just look at what they've been able to do in this run. And Stevie just said, how long can that last? I have no idea. I have no clue how long can this last because they should have been done against PSG. They should have been done against Chelsea. They should have been done against Manchester City. And here they are with an opportunity to go into a final where everybody's going to say, Liverpool are favorites. Liverpool are favorites.
But they are. You know,
absolutely. They are. I'm not denying that.
Talking logic.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Logic doesn't work with this team.
No.
That's a problem.
Are you happy that it's Real Madrid in the final?
Absolutely. If you give me a choice before this game kicked off, I would absolutely have said I would rather play against Real Madrid than Manchester City. And yes, you can point to all these. I mean, just the football gods are shining on them something rotten right now. But it can't last forever. Logic just tells you that you can't keep doing this. And they've still got to do it again because they're playing against a better side than them, as they were against Man City, as they were against Chelsea, and probably as they were against PSG. They're all better sides than them. But somehow the soccer gods have pulled them through again.
And Gab, I hear you laughing. I mean, sometimes it's all you can do when you can't explain this voodoo, as you're saying.
No, and look, I was there in 2005 in Istanbul when Liverpool were 3-0 down, thoroughly outplayed, and in the space of 8 minutes scored 3 goals and then won on penalties, right? And you know, you talk about logic. There was no logic to that whatsoever. And it's funny, and maybe it's karma. Although I think Carlo Ancelotti might say that karma is repaid him back in bundles because between Sergio Ramos' goal in Lisbon, last minute of the Champions League final to equalize against Atletico Madrid, and then the Paris Saint-Germain game, and then the Chelsea game, and then tonight. Yeah, I mean, Istanbul was painful, but you know, he got his own coming back.
So now let's get to Man City because PSG was slaughtered by the panel after Real Madrid came back against them. Should City be slaughtered after what we saw over the 2 legs?
No, I don't think.
Should they be slaughtered for what happened tonight?
I don't think they should be slaughtered. No, listen, had Manchester City turned up tonight and lost 4-0 and got completely outplayed and embarrassed in that way, then they would have deserved to be slaughtered. But the fact is, certain little things didn't go their way that turned into be enormous things.
But is it their fault they didn't go their way?
Well, yeah, of course you can. I've just sat here and told you that both centre-backs, in my opinion, are one of... There are two reasons, yeah. They didn't take the chances and the goals they lost were avoidable. Those are the 2 main reasons why this team has gotten beaten. But I don't think they deserve to be slaughtered. You know, you can't... Players make mistakes, and sometimes the opposition get a rub of the green. And that sounds a little illogical to say that those 2 factors mean that you lose a 2-legged semi-final. But that's what happens in football. We've just been talking about it. Some things you can't explain. So you can't go pillorying Manchester City or slaughtering them because they got beaten. Because the way the games went, they should have won, but the football gods didn't give them it.
Yeah, but you got to see the game out, though, Stevie, right? You're in full control.
Yes, you can.
Did they think they'd won after that goal from Mahrez then?
No, I don't think that Manchester City at that point was overlooking Real Madrid. What I think was concerning from Manchester City's perspective is the lack of understanding of the moment. Is that, okay, what is Real Madrid going to do? They haven't been able to get a shot on target. Eventually, they're just going to commit numbers forward. Eventually, they're just going to lump balls into the box, trying to get on the end of the second balls and rebounds, something, so that they manufacture a chance from nothing. And that's how the first goal comes. And yet, what you find from Manchester City today defensively in those moments is things that we have seen already this season from the same pair of center backs.
So it's individuals, not the team.
Right. And
you could pull out individuals that I've just done. So it's not the team. You can't. Within a team, there will be games and days where individuals make mistakes. Sometimes you get away with it, and sometimes you don't. And unfortunately, this was a huge day to have individuals making mistakes.
But the point to me is, you got to see out today, right? Let's focus on that. You got to see it out. You cannot be surprised that Real Madrid scores and Santiago Bernabeu is jumping and the energy and everything is happening. The momentum is not with you and you're not able to adjust to it. That you're not able to get out from that pattern of, well, we're just going to play out of things. We're going to make it pretty. We're going to keep possession of the ball. No. See, sometimes all of that, in theory, is great. How about you just put it over there in the 20th row and kill the game off? How about you don't have to keep perfect possession of the ball? How about you put some numbers behind the ball and you get tough defensively and clear out a header, and your center backs come and clean somebody out in order to clear out a header? Sometimes you got to get ugly to get through. And Manchester City haven't proven in this competition, at the very least, that they can get ugly when it's their turn to do so. That in moments in which you just have to get through the game, see the end of the game out, you haven't been able to do it. The only way that they were able to do it against Atletico Madrid, because Atletico Madrid got on their own way. But even in that game, there were moments in which Manchester City were nervous against a team that did not have any sort of resources going forward and hadn't proven that they could score a goal. So to me, you got to see it out today, and you also have to look back to the first leg and see the things that you left on the table there as well.
Okay, Gab, hold that thought, because Nedum Anua is actually joining us now. Hello, Nedum. We'd like to get your reaction, first of all, to what you saw tonight.
Well, the two sides to this. There's obviously the side of me as a fan. I'm on a bit of a downer, to be honest. But from the sort of analytical side of it, I agree with certain elements of what the guys are saying there, because when City went 1-0 up, you're almost expecting them to be able to manage the situation. And I think when Grealish had a chance in the 88th minute, you're thinking, well, it doesn't really matter because they're in control and so on and so forth. But the reality of the situation is, like, Real Madrid, they can get so well motivated by that clock, especially in that stadium. The time's ticking, they'll throw bodies forward. For as good as they play at times, they'll throw bodies in the box. They'll put good quality in there. They'll just try and stick the header on everything. And it is like a gut check as a defender and as a team in there. Can you win a header? Can you clear the ball? But I don't know. It was a shame because that second half for me was very disappointing from the City standpoint. And then the moment extra time started and there was that cheap penalty giveaway by Diaz, the last thing you needed was Real Madrid being in control of the game at home. Because that 30 minutes there, like, how long was the ball in play for? They can manage the situation, manage the moment. And it was, for me, such a shame for them because, they've worked very hard to be in this position, but it's just little individual errors at certain points that can make a big difference. And when you look at the context of those two goals, there's 60 seconds between the two of them. Like, anyone who watches, like, Real Madrid, they know the game is not over until that final whistle goes. They will throw everything at you. The crowd believe, the players believe. So you have to accept that this is what you're going to be faced with. So for them to concede that first one, and then, like, literally a minute later, concede that second, and don't get me wrong, I don't think Rodrygo's meant to sort of head it after somebody's flicked it, but still they throw themselves in the box, they put the bodies there, and it just wasn't to be for City today. I still think they're a very good side, but I think some of the individuals in terms of how they play today, I don't think they're anywhere near their best. And I think when you play at these sorts of clubs, you get these big moments, and if you're not at your best, the downside of not working out is that you'll lose in the semi-final of the Champions League, you'll lose in the final of the Champions League. You might lose a league title, lose a League Cup and stuff like this. You can't hide. There's no hiding place in the middle of the field at Santiago Bernabeu as there's like 3 minutes left to go. So, you know, as I say, from a fan standpoint, I'm disappointed. But the reality is, you know, Real Madrid, they did what they do. This is Real Madrid in the Champions League. This is Real Madrid this season. They never give up. They find a way. They ride their luck whenever they need to. Even Casemiro not getting booked. But for City, I can't say they deserve to get to the final, because the fact of the matter is, like, they didn't manage the moment. And that's exactly what they needed to do. Going out in the second half, Real Madrid were 45 minutes away from being eliminated from the competition. And you were not to play into their hands. But unfortunately, as time passed, they ended up doing so. And then come extra time, as soon as Benzema scored that penalty, I just couldn't see City scoring. And that's just the inevitability of the situation, unfortunately.
So who wasn't at their best for City tonight, Naden?
I thought overall the front three were very quiet. I thought Gabriel Jesus was really quiet. I thought Foden was quiet. I thought Mahrez was really quiet and at times really sloppy. Kevin De Bruyne wasn't very good. Like, even when he came off the field, I was thinking, oh, that still feels weird. But then you look back and you think, well, what did he do in the game? And then very quickly, Gundogan gets involved with Zinchenko and they create the goal for Mahrez. So, you know, they weren't at the best. I thought Bernardo Silva was pretty good, to be honest. And Rodri looked a bit tired towards the end. But it's just like the front three, as I say, they've done so well. They've done so well recently, but they just weren't really there today. And I think that affected De Bruyne as well. And City as an attacking threat, I thought they were nowhere near as good as, say, they have been in recent games. And I think what they needed really was more people to be trying to stretch the game in behind, but they didn't do that today. And I think as a matchup, that played into Real Madrid's hands. And, you know, to scoot forward towards the final, I think you can never count Real Madrid out. But, like, Liverpool are the most front foot, like, high energy team that probably exists in Europe at this moment in time. And I think that's the way to break down a Real Madrid side, because City weren't really doing that today. And I think ultimately they paid the price.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.